now we have Maria Castiglioni talking about the difference in infertility between men and women.
Okay, good morning. No.
Yeah, otherwise we cut our.
Okay. We have seen in the previous presentation that Yvette told us that there is a higher infertility among men compared to women. And this is the topic of our presentation, focused on the differences between males and females within couples. So we don't distinguish in this presentation between voluntary or biological infertility, so we speak about the ratio of persons without children. No, too much. Okay, here the attention is in the proportion of childless men and childless women compared, and we see that in the Italian cohorts the proportion is always higher among men, and this proportion is increasing as we have seen before, and also in the north of Italy, in the northern region, it is higher and higher, this difference. But this is a common trait of other Western countries. And here, the blue bar is the proportion of childless men, whereas the gray bar is the proportion of women without children. And we see that everywhere, not in Georgia, but this is the only country. In the other countries, we observe a higher proportion of men without children. But our question is why this may be possible, because the problem is that children need two parents, so why we have a lower number of women without children compared to men? This problem, the problem of the imbalance between men and women is a topic that has been often studied in demography, mostly about the marriage squeeze, for example, or the comparison in the marriage market. And for example, here we see that for the cohorts born at the end of the 19th century till the cohorts born at the beginning of the 20th century, there is a very high difference in the proportion of never married persons between males and females. So this is a problem that is related to the number of cohorts. In this case, we have these cohorts are those who are affected by the First World War, and the imbalance in the number of married or never married when men and women is related to the deaths during the First World War, where more males died. So here there is an explanation, or there are a lot of studies related to this. But our question is why today there is, of course, the problem of childlessness is related to the place where the births have place, of course. So we have to move to couples. But the problem is, the question is why today we observe this difference, because this is not a period when cohorts are so unbalanced. So we cannot focus on the imbalances between males and females to try an explanation of these differences. So why? What is happening? Our hypothesis is that the second unions play a role, okay? So this is our hypothesis or our thesis, okay? So we observe that men are more likely to form as other unions, second, third unions, after the breakup of a cohabiting union. We don't distinguish between marriage and cohabitation. We speak about unions in general. If this phenomenon is of a certain intensity, so if there is a relevant higher difference in the proportion of in the attitudes towards the formation of second unions, we call this as a sort of a diachronic polygamy, okay? So if this behavior concerns more the males, the men, we speak about diachronic polygamous men, okay? And our thesis is that they steal, okay, steal women from other men. Consequently, okay, a certain number of men cannot find a partner with whom to form a union and then have children, okay? So we cannot test directly this hypothesis because we don't have data, at least in Italy, with the union and reproductive history of both partners. Okay, we cannot follow the history of a couple and their the components, but we try to identify some clues with other analysis. So we do some simulations, we use demographic analysis, and we try to test this with logistic models. Okay, just to concentrate on our hypothesis, okay, two extreme cases. Okay, suppose we have a population with 2 men and 2 women. The man marries a woman, and they have a child, at least one child. Then the union is dissolved, and then the man marry or unites with a second woman and have children together. In this case, we have the share of childless people that is 50% for men and 0% for women. Okay? Another extreme example, a population of animals, adult animals, 10 male animals and 10 female animals. The dominant male has sexual intercourses with all the female animals. In this case, we have 10 women with children and just 1 man with children. Okay? Children, not children, but with their babies. Okay? So also in this case, we have this kind of strong, extreme polygamy, but can explain the different proportion of childless or animals without descendants. So, of course, now we concentrate on a simulation that is a bit more realistic. And in this case, we try to reconstruct the history of unions of males and females in a simulated population with the same number of males and females at the beginning, adult males and females. Okay? So we, as the two population, males and females, are very balanced. They have the same probability to form a first union between 2 partners that are at first union. They have the same probability, of course, of dissolution of the first union, but what changes is the propensity of males with a broken union to form a second union with a partner, a female partner, without unions. This propensity is higher than the symmetrical propensity of women women with a broken union who marry, who unites with a man without previous unions. Okay, this is the difference. And those are the green and the yellow are the 2 propensities that are different. And at the end of the history, when we follow their history of unions, we obtain the parameters that are below, and we observe that the men are never went in union is higher than the same proportion for females. And as unions are related to reproduction, this can explain the higher proportion of men without children. Given this picture of the simulation, we can change the parameters, and we can change the propensity of dissolution of the unions. In the first panel, we see that when the probability of dissolution of the first union increases, the our variable of interest, that is the difference between a male and female, men and women who are never married or never in union, okay, increases. So when increases the probability of dissolution, then increases the gap of never in unions between males and females. Or the second panel, we can change the two probabilities, the green and the yellow probabilities, okay? And we obtain the second panel, so the gap increases, okay? So our simulations, this is the propensity of dissolution, and the final conclusion we obtain is that as is increasing the proportion of men, this probability of dissolution, the percentage of dissolution of unions, then we can observe an increasing difference, increasing gap between men and female and women. Second situation, second analysis, demographic tools. We calculated from the FSS something that is similar to the parity progression ratio, so it is the union progression ratio. These in the table are the values, and they are reported in the graph. So we can see that the probability to form the first union is higher among women compared to men, but the propensity for those who have a previous union to form a second, third, fourth union is higher for men. Okay, so it is confirming our hypothesis that men and women have different propensity. In this graph, we can observe the final composition by union situation of males and females. And the blue bar is the gap difference, the gender difference between males and females. We observe that the proportion of men who never entered a union is higher than the proportion, it is the blue bar, it is higher than for women. And in the orange bar, we see that the proportion of women who have a broken union who are single in a broken union is higher for women compared to men. So it confirms the situation, because the blue bar are men without unions, so they have less children. Logistic analysis. We try to put together and to analyze this, controlling for some independent variables. And here I present, we study the formation of first union, of a second union, and so on, but I'm focusing on the probability. Okay, we wanted to study the relation between fertility and couple history, okay? And our population here is the population of individuals with at least one history, couple history, and have at least 2 children. This is our population of interest because we want to study our probability, our dependent probability is the probability that these 2 children come from different unions, okay? So the interest here is to observe if it is true that at the end that men has a polygamous history, reproductive histories compared, more diffused compared to women. Okay? I hope that it is clear. So here we observe that the probability of having children from 2 different histories, couple histories, is higher for men compared to women. Okay, it is more frequent among the younger cohorts, so it is a process that is diffusing, and we can observe also an additional effect related to the interaction that is the role of high education for males, but this is another points that can be studied more in depth. So The regression models, the children from different partners are more frequent among men than among women, and this phenomenon accelerates in recent generations. So, all these three analyses go in the same direction. So they support our hypothesis. We don't test the hypothesis completely directly, but all the elements go in the same direction. And although by available data, the initial hypothesis cannot be explored in detail, all the collected evidence for Italy points in the same direction. So we observe that men with multiple diachronic unions, having unions and children with 2 or more women, take away potential female partners from other men who are unable to enter a union and to have children. This can also happen for women, but to a lesser extent. Consequently, a higher proportion of men never form a cohabiting union, remaining childless. Okay.